Have you ever noticed how heavy it feels to constantly try to improve? You buy the journal, you set the alarm for 5 in the morning, you read the self-help books, and you track every emotion like it's a problem that needs to be solved. But at the end of the day, you sit on the edge of your bed, completely exhausted, wondering why you still feel so far away from peace. It's like carrying an invisible checklist everywhere you go, checking off every box for self-improvement, yet feeling heavier with each step. We have turned healing into a full-time job, complete with its own performance reviews and expectations. Every morning becomes a test you have to pass, and every evening becomes a review of where you fell short. You catch yourself analyzing the way you responded to a friend, or why your chest felt tight during lunch, or why you couldn't stay positive during a long drive home. You drag your heart into an interrogation room every single day, asking it why it hasn't healed faster, why it still feels fragile, and why it can't just be fixed already. It is exhausting to live inside a mind that acts like a manager instead of a home. You spend so much energy trying to curate your thoughts, quiet your inner doubts, and engineer the perfect morning routine, all because you're terrified that if you pause for even a second, everything will crumble. You feel like you're holding up a crumbling wall with your bare hands, convinced that your endless effort is the only thing keeping you safe. But nobody can live like that forever. You were not born to spend your entire life in repair mode. You were not created just to continuously repair yourself like a broken object. Look at your hands right now. Think about how long they have been holding on to this heavy urge to fix everything inside you. Think about how tired your mind is from constantly searching for the next self-help lesson, the next routine, or the next secret to finally feeling okay. You are allowed to be tired. In fact, that deep, overwhelming fatigue you are feeling right now isn't a failure. It is your heart telling you that it is tired of being treated like a project. It is your soul pleading with you to stop fighting yourself. Real healing was never meant to be a relentless project. It was never supposed to feel like a marathon with no finish line, where every step forward just reveals another flaw you have to work on. True healing isn't about becoming a perfect, flawless version of yourself who never feels anxious, weary. It is about learning to sit softly with the person you are right now, even when you are broken, even when you don't have all the answers, and even when you feel completely unfinished. If you are feeling completely burned out by the effort to make yourself whole, I want to invite you to pause right now. Drop your shoulders away from your ears. Unclench your jaw. Let your hands loosen their grip. You don't have to fix anything in this very second. You don't have to figure out your whole life before the sun sets today. You can just sit here, breathe, and let yourself be human for a moment. Take a deep breath. Leave the phrase, "I give myself permission to rest today," in the comments, and let that be your very first step toward true relief. It starts out with good intentions. You realize you want to break old patterns, speak to yourself with more kindness, or manage your stress better. So you dive in. You pick up the books, listen to the podcasts, and start paying closer attention to how you feel. At first, it feels empowering, like you're finally taking control of your life and moving toward light. But somewhere along the line, without you even noticing, the pursuit of growth turns into a subtle form of self-criticism. What began as a journey toward self-love slowly transforms into a high-pressure performance. Every quiet moment gets filled with self-analysis. Instead of enjoying a peaceful morning, you sit there evaluating whether you are feeling the right kind of peace. You notice yourself overthinking a conversation you had at work, analyzing why your voice shook when you spoke up, or judging yourself for feeling anxious on a quiet Sunday afternoon. You wonder why you haven't outgrown these feelings yet, as if feeling human is something you were supposed to graduate from months ago. Instead of letting yourself just exist, you treat every human emotion as a system failure that needs immediate fixing. Sadness isn't just sadness anymore. It becomes evidence that your mindset work isn't working. Frustration isn't just a natural reaction to a hard day. It becomes a sign that you haven't mastered emotional regulation. You stop allowing yourself to just feel your life. You audit it. You become an inspector in your own heart, walking through the rooms of your inner world with a flashlight, constantly looking for flaws to patch, cracks to fill, and mistakes to correct. When we treat our inner lives like a constant repair site, we inadvertently send a message to ourselves that who we are right now isn't enough. We send a quiet, painful signal to our own hearts that we will only accept ourselves once we reach some imagined perfect future version of who we are supposed to be. We tell ourselves, I will love myself when I stop getting anxious. I will accept myself when I react perfectly to stress. I will rest when I am fully healed. But that future version is a moving target. Every time you get close, the goalposts shift, and you set a new standard you have to meet before you allow yourself to feel worthy. We get trapped in a cycle of measuring our progress, constantly checking if we are calmer, wiser, or more resilient today than we were yesterday. You compare your present self to an idealized standard, and every time you drop the ball or have a bad day, you feel like you've fallen backward. But life isn't a straight line, and your worth isn't a score on a chart. Constant measurement creates constant tension. It keeps your nervous system locked in a state of defense, convincing you that you are never safe until you are completely reformed. Think about how much heart you have put into trying to grow. You have tried so hard because you genuinely want to heal, because you care about your life, and because you want to feel better. There is so much beauty in your desire to grow, but you don't have to turn that beauty into a cage. You don't have to trap yourself inside an endless loop of self-correction. What would happen if you stopped evaluating yourself for just one day? What if you let a bad mood just be a bad mood without turning it into a lesson? What if you let your voice shake without assuming it means you are weak? The moment you stop turning every experience into a self-help exercise, the trap begins to open. You are allowed to be flawed, unpredictable, and imperfect. You are allowed to just be here, living your life, without constantly trying to fix the person living it. Living this way forces your body and mind to stay in a state of high alert. Think about how much energy it takes to constantly monitor your thoughts. You sit down to watch a movie or enjoy a quiet cup of tea, but a small wave of ja or frustration hits you. Immediately, your mind races. You start asking, why am I feeling this? What did I do wrong today? Did I forget my morning routine? You aren't actually allowing yourself to feel the moment. You are auditing it. You become a guard standing at the door of your own mind, refusing to let anything uncomfortable pass through without a thorough interrogation. That level of vigilance is exhausting. It leaves no room for simplicity, spontaneity, or genuine rest. You can't feel safe in your own life if you are constantly acting as your own auditor. It is like wearing heavy armor everywhere you go, expecting an attack from your own emotions at any second. You walk into a room, sit with your loved ones, or step outside to breathe the afternoon air. But a part of you stays on watch. You monitor the tightness in your throat, the slight dip in your mood, or the sudden quiet that settles in your mind. You treat your inner landscape like a dangerous room where anything could break if you look away for too long. But living under that kind of self-surveillance wears down your spirit. It drains the beauty out of ordinary moments because you are too busy scanning for internal threats to actually be present. When you live with constant vigilance, rest doesn't feel like rest. It feels like a risk. You sit down on the couch, but your mind is still running in the background, analyzing every emotion that surface-level quiet brings up. You try to relax, but an inner voice whispers that dropping your guard is dangerous, that if you aren't actively monitoring your healing, you will slip backward into old patterns. So you keep your hand on the wheel, gripping it until your knuckles turn white, trying to steer every thought, every feeling, and every breath toward total control. Think of how much soft, beautiful life passes you by while you are busy holding guard at the door of your heart. You miss the warmth of the tea in your hands because you are evaluating your mood. You miss the quiet humor in a friend's voice because you are analyzing whether your emotional response was grounded enough. You miss the gentle beauty of an ordinary Tuesday because you are treating yourself like a difficult project that requires around-the-clock monitoring. Your body was never built to live under a microscope. Your mind was never meant to be a courtroom where every emotion is put on trial before it is allowed to exist. The sadness, the sudden waves of weariness, the quiet moments of confusion, they are not signs that you are failing at healing. They are simply part of being a living, breathing human being. When you give up the exhausting job of auditing your own mind, you don't fall apart. Instead, you finally make space for peace to step into the room. What if you let the guard drop his weapon today? What if, the next time a heavy thought or an uncomfortable feeling drifts into your awareness, you don't interrogate it? What if you don't ask it where it came from, why it's here, or how quickly you can make it leave? What if you just acknowledge it softly, like a cloud passing through a quiet afternoon sky, and let yourself keep breathing? You don't have to monitor every corner of your mind to be safe. You are allowed to take off the heavy armor, lower your guard, and finally, let yourself just be. What if, just for a moment, you put all the tools down? What if you put away the trackers, stopped analyzing your childhood reactions, and allowed yourself to just be a human being having an ordinary day? Dropping the tools doesn't mean giving up on yourself. It means trusting yourself enough to stop constantly trying to rebuild who you are. Imagine sitting on a bench in a park, watching the leaves move in the wind. You aren't trying to figure out why the wind blows or how the trees grow. You are just sitting there. You can experience your internal world the exact same way. You don't have to fix every uncomfortable thought that drifts through your mind. Sometimes, the most powerful step forward is simply laying down the heavy burden of trying to repair everything at once. Think about how much energy you spend reaching for a tool every time you feel something uncomfortable. The moment sadness touches your chest, you reach for your journal to write it out. The moment anxiety flutters in your stomach, you reach for a breathing pattern, a grounding technique, or a self-help strategy. You have spent so long accumulating methods to fix yourself that you have forgotten how to simply exist without them. You have built a wall of techniques between yourself and your actual experience. But tools are meant to serve you, not rule your life. When every feeling becomes a prompt for a self-improvement exercise, you lose the quiet beauty of just living. It takes real courage to open your hands and set those tools down, even for just an afternoon. It feels terrifying at first, because you have convinced yourself that without your constant routines, strategies, and analysis, you will fall apart. You fear that if you stop actively trying to heal, the old pain will consume you. But putting down the tools is not surrender. It is an act of deep faith in your own resilience. It is looking at your life and saying, I am safe enough to step away from the workbench. I am strong enough to just live. Imagine walking through your day without carrying a heavy toolbox on your shoulders. You wake up, and you don't instantly audit your mood to see if you are starting the day right. You eat a meal without evaluating whether it was mindful enough. You feel a sudden wave of fatigue or quiet sadness while sitting near a window. And instead of pulling out an exercise to reverse it, you simply let it be. You let the feeling rest beside you, like an unexpected afternoon visitor. You don't ask it to explain itself. You don't try to fix it. You just let it exist while you continue living your life. When you drop the tools, something miraculous happens. Space opens up. The tension in your shoulders begins to ease because you are no longer preparing to fix the next problem. Your mind stops racing to construct the perfect self-care strategy. You begin to notice the world outside of your own inner work, the way sunlight filters through glass, the sound of water running in the sink, the comfort of a warm sweater, or the simple rhythm of your own breath. You remember that life is not happening inside your self-improvement journal. It is happening right here, in the plain, unscripted present. You do not need to spend the rest of your days operating on your own heart. You are not a broken machine that needs continuous maintenance to function. You are a living person, and living people are meant to experience a full range of weather: sunny afternoons, sudden storms, quiet, cold days, and warm, gentle evenings. You don't need a tool for every kind of weather. Sometimes you just need to let the rain fall without trying to stop it. Today, give yourself permission to lay the tools on the floor, step away from the repair site, and simply exist as you are. When you finally stop trying so hard, a strange thing often happens. Resistance shows up. You might feel a sudden surge of restlessness, impatience, or even guilt for taking a break from your self-improvement routines. Your mind might whisper that if you aren't actively working on yourself, you are falling behind. You step away from the trackers, the endless self-help reading, and the constant introspection. But instead of immediate relief, your chest tightens. Anxious thoughts begin to circle. Shouldn't I be doing something right now? Am I regressing? What if all my old habits come rushing back if I drop my guard? That discomfort isn't proof that you are failing. It is simply the habit of control trying to keep its grip on you. When you have spent months or years treating your life like a problem to be solved, stepping back feels dangerous. Your mind mistakes constant effort for safety. So when you finally decide to rest, it raises an alarm. You feel resistant to the quiet. You feel resistant to just being human. When Carl Jung reflected on how we navigate our internal worlds, he observed that what you resist not only persists, but will grow in size. When we fight our tiredness, our anxiety, or our need for a break, we actually feed energy into those very feelings. Think about what happens when you try to force yourself not to feel restless. You get angry at the restlessness. Then you get frustrated with yourself for being angry. You end up stacking layer upon layer of judgment on top of a simple, natural human reaction. The resistance grows because we are fighting reality. We are refusing to let the present moment be what it is. When you judge your resistance, you turn your own mind into a battlefield. You start treating your exhaustion as an enemy, your doubt as a flaw, and your need for rest as a weakness. But what if you stopped fighting the battle altogether? What if, when resistance shows up, you didn't meet it with anger or fear, but with a quiet, gentle curiosity? Imagine sitting down across from your resistance, as if it were an old, tired friend who has been carrying too much weight for too long. You don't try to lecture it. You don't try to change its mind. You don't tell it to pack up and leave. You simply look at it and say, I see how tired you are. I see how hard you've been trying to keep us safe. Because that is all resistance really is. It is a protective part of you that is terrified of what happens if you stop managing everything. When you acknowledge your exhaustion without trying to fix it or explain it away, its power begins to dissolve. The tightness in your chest starts to soften, not because the feeling instantly disappeared, but because you stopped wrestling with it. You stopped demanding that your internal world be perfectly calm before you allow yourself to breathe. You are allowed to feel hesitant about resting. You are allowed to feel a little lost when you step away from the strict routines of self-improvement. You don't need to feel perfectly peaceful about putting down your heavy burdens. Let the hesitation be there. Let the uncertainty sit quietly in the corner of the room. When you stop judging yourself for having these feelings, the inner noise begins to settle. You realize that you don't need to conquer your resistance. You just need to stop fighting it and let yourself finally rest. Fixing says, "This emotion is wrong, and I need to clear it out immediately so I can feel better." Permitting says, "This emotion is here right now, and I have enough space inside me to let it exist." Think about the difference in how those two approaches feel in your body. Fixing makes your muscles tense, your chest tighten, and your breathing become shallow. It puts you into a state of internal warfare. When you operate from a mindset of fixing, every unexpected drop in your mood feels like an alarm going off in an empty building. You panic. You start pacing through your own mind, trying to figure out which wire to cut to stop the noise. You treat your own discomfort like a fire that has to be put out before you can safely take another breath. Permitting, on the other hand, lets your shoulders drop and your chest expand. Permitting is the quiet act of opening a window in a room that has been closed up for too long. It is looking at a heavy feeling and saying, "You can stay for a while if you need to. I am not going to fight you." When you permit an emotion to exist, you stop trying to manage it, clean it up, or translate it into a lesson. You stop treating yourself like a chaotic room that constantly needs to be organized. If you feel tired today, you don't need to find the root cause of the tiredness before you permit yourself to rest. You don't need to spend an hour journaling about why you lack energy, nor do you need to trace it back through years of your life story just to validate your exhaustion. You can simply be tired. You can wrap yourself in a blanket, lie down, and let your body be heavy without offering a single explanation to anyone, least of all, yourself. If you feel irritable while waiting in line at the store, you don't need to turn it into a lesson on patience. You don't have to scold yourself for not being perfectly peaceful or balanced in that moment. You can just notice the irritation, let it sit there, and continue with your day. You can let the irritation exist in your body without letting it control your actions or turn into self-directed anger. When we spend all our energy fixing, we act as though our hearts are made of fragile glass that will shatter if an uncomfortable emotion stays too long. But your inner life is far more vast than that. You are strong enough, wide enough, and deep enough to carry both your joy and your quiet sadness at the very same time. You do not need to clear out every cloud in order to enjoy the sky. Imagine how much gentle relief comes when you stop trying to fix your feelings. You sit at your desk or walk down a quiet street, and a sudden wave of heaviness settles over your chest. Instead of reaching for a technique to force it away, you simply soften around it. You say to yourself, "This is just how I feel right now," and that is okay. Healing happens in that space of permission, not in the room of endless repair. When you give yourself permission to feel whatever is actually there, without trying to edit it, improve it, or rewrite it, the struggle inside you finally comes to an end. You discover that peace isn't the total absence of uncomfortable emotions. It is the gentle decision to stop fighting them. Somewhere along the way, we started treating our personal lives like corporate projects. We optimized our mornings, categorized our evenings, and turned simple hobbies into metrics of self-care. Even our rest became something we felt we had to perform efficiently. We began asking ourselves if our evening walks were long enough, if our reading was educational enough, or if our relaxation was effectively lowering our heart rate. But human beings are not meant to be optimized. We are meant to live. You were not born to be an endless machine of productivity, constantly extracting value, self-growth, or measurable progress out of every single hour of your existence. Remember what it felt like to do something simply because it felt pleasant, without caring whether it was good for your growth. Think back to when you were younger, or even just to moments when you weren't carrying this heavy burden of constant self-improvement. You used to doodle on a piece of paper without caring if it looked good. You listened to a song 5 times in a row just because the sound made your chest feel warm. You sat on the porch and watched the sky change colors without feeling guilty that you weren't reading a book on healing or working through a journal prompt. There was no agenda, no goal, and no desire to turn the moment into a personal breakthrough. It was just a moment, pure and complete on its own. Reclaiming that space is essential. When you free yourself from the demand to be productive, even in your healing, you give your spirit room to breathe. Spend an afternoon listening to your favorite music while cooking a meal, taking a long walk with no destination in mind, or organizing a simple shelf just to enjoy the clean look of it, not to reach a state of internal perfection, but just to participate in the tangible present moment. Notice how different it feels when you do something without expecting a self-improvement reward at the end. When you cook that meal, you aren't doing it to master mindfulness. You are doing it because the garlic smells wonderful in the pan. When you walk down the street, you aren't trying to achieve a target step count or process emotional trauma. You are just feeling the cool air on your face and listening to the rustle of dry leaves along the pavement. When you arrange things on a shelf, you aren't fixing your life. You are just enjoying the quiet, simple, satisfying weight of objects in your hands. We have been conditioned to believe that if a moment isn't producing results, it is wasted. We feel an anxious itch in our hands whenever we sit quietly, a quiet, nagging voice telling us that we should be reflecting, learning, or working on our issues. But that voice is lying to you. It is the voice of burnout disguised as purpose. The most healing thing you can do for yourself today might be to do something utterly, beautifully useless. Sit on the floor and put together a puzzle. Watch water boil in a glass kettle. Stare out the window at the gray clouds moving across the sky until the sun goes down. Do it without taking notes. Do it without analyzing what it means about your psychological state. Do it simply because you are alive. And alive is a wonderful, unburdened thing to be. Living unproductively for a few hours is not wasted time. It is the natural rhythm of life restored. Nature does not rush, nor does it justify its quiet moments. A tree does not feel guilty for shedding its leaves and standing empty through the cold months of winter. It simply rests, knowing that existence itself is enough. You, too, are allowed to just exist. You do not have to earn your place on this earth through relentless effort or non-stop self-correction. Today, let go of the pressure to turn your life into a masterclass and step back into the sweet, simple joy of just being here. Think about how a physical wound heals. You don't sit over a paper cut staring at it, forcing the cells to rebuild, or checking it every 2 minutes to measure the speed of recovery. You don't pry open the edges of the cut every hour to see if the skin beneath has finished repairing itself. You clean it, cover it, and then you go about your life, trusting that your body knows what to do beneath the surface. You carry on with your day, knowing that an incredible, quiet intelligence inside you is working continuously without needing your conscious instructions or constant permission. Your mind and emotions operate under very similar principles. Much of your internal integration happens when you aren't paying attention. We live in a culture that convinces us that all growth must be conscious, analytical, and effortful. We think that if we aren't actively processing a past hurt, talking about our patterns, or dissecting our emotional triggers, then no healing is taking place. But the deepest parts of your heart do not perform on command. They do not operate according to a schedule or yield to forceful demands. Real growth happens in the background. It happens while you're focused on making soup, watching rain hit a window pane, or laughing with an old friend. It happens during those ordinary, quiet spaces when your mind is finally distracted enough to let go of its heavy control. While you are busy paying attention to the warmth of a mug in your hands, or listening to a story someone is telling you, your subconscious mind is quietly weaving things together. It is sorting through old memories, softening sharp edges, and settling long-standing internal conflicts that you could never force to resolve through sheer willpower. As Carl Jung wrote regarding the quiet, natural processes that guide human experience, nature carries out her operations with imperceptible slowness. Think about how a forest grows after a harsh season. It doesn't rush to bloom overnight to prove a point. It doesn't strain or panic under the soil. Deep beneath the dark earth, roots are expanding. Moisture is being absorbed, and structural strength is building step by step in total, invisible silence. You cannot see the tree growing from one minute to the next, yet month after month, year after year, it quietly transforms. Your inner landscape is no different. You cannot measure your emotional integration hour by hour, and demanding to see immediate proof of your growth only disrupts the quiet work taking place within you. When you stop forcing your progress, your inner world finally gets the quiet environment it needs to organize itself naturally. Constant self-analysis is like constantly pulling up a seed you planted yesterday to see if it has grown roots yet. Every time you dig it up to check on it, you disrupt its natural process. You have to leave the seed in the dark soil. You have to trust that even when nothing seems to be happening on the surface, life is moving beneath. Give yourself permission to stop monitoring your internal progress. You do not need to wake up every morning and test your heart to see if it feels less broken than it did yesterday. You do not need to measure how far you have come or calculate how much further you have left to go. Let the heavy questions rest. Trust that every lesson you have learned, every tears you have shed, and every piece of insight you have gained is already settling into its proper place within you. You are growing even when you can't feel it happening. You are healing even on the days when you feel tired, unfocused, or completely flat. Step out of the way of your own heart. Stop trying to oversee every micro step of your internal recovery. Go wash a plate, take a slow walk around the block, or sit quietly with a warm blanket. Trust the imperceptible slowness of your own nature and allow the unseen integration to happen all on its own. Moving forward while tired of healing doesn't mean taking giant leaps or making grand commitments. It doesn't require you to rebuild your entire life by tomorrow morning or map out a 5-year plan for your emotional well-being. When you are completely exhausted from trying so hard to fix yourself, the thought of big changes feels overwhelming, almost impossible. But true movement doesn't happen through force. It means choosing small, quiet actions that feel light and manageable. It means deciding that today your only goal is to drink a glass of water slowly while standing near an open window. It means letting the cool air hit your face and feeling the weight of your feet planted firmly on the floor. It means giving yourself permission to do just one simple thing without asking it to transform your life. You don't need to turn a walk around the block into a deep, meditative practice. You don't need to turn cooking dinner into a lesson in mindfulness. You can just take the step. You can just chop the vegetables. You can just feel the ground beneath you as you walk. It means acknowledging that you don't need to have your entire life figured out by this evening. So much of our exhaustion comes from trying to solve tomorrow's problems with today's energy. We carry the heavy weight of the future on shoulders that are already weary from carrying the past. But you don't have to carry both. You only have to handle this exact hour, this exact minute, this single, unrepeatable breath. When you let go of the need to fix everything at once, the immediate present moment opens up, soft and forgiving. When you remove the pressure of turning every action into a transformational event, life becomes surprisingly gentle. You begin to notice how much simpler things are when you stop demanding that they carry deep psychological weight. Opening a window becomes just opening a window. Sitting down on a chair becomes just resting your body. Writing a quick note becomes just putting ink on paper. Life stops feeling like a steep mountain you have to climb and starts feeling like a room you are simply allowed to inhabit. You begin to move forward, not out of a desperate need to fix yourself, but out of a simple, quiet curiosity about what the present moment has to offer. You take a step forward, not because you are trying to escape who you were yesterday, but because you are curious about what it feels like to live today. You begin to trust that you don't need a grand revelation to keep living. The small, quiet steps are more than enough. Think about how gentle a true forward step can be. It can be opening your eyes and letting the morning light rest on your wall. It can be washing a single cup and setting it on the counter to dry. It can be sitting quietly on the edge of your bed, placing a hand over your heart, and letting yourself breathe without judgment for 2 short minutes. These are not small accomplishments. They are acts of profound kindness toward yourself. You do not need to prove your strength by running when you are barely able to walk. You do not need to prove your healing by constantly achieving new emotional milestones. If all you can do today is rest, drink your water, and let the hours pass without punishing yourself for feeling weary, then that is more than enough. The path forward was never meant to be a sprint through heavy terrain. It is a quiet, steady trail made of light, unburdened steps. Take one small step today. Let go of the rest. And trust that the path will continue to meet your feet. In the end, peace isn't found at the peak of a long self-improvement journey. It is not waiting for you at some distant finish line where you finally have every pattern deciphered, every old hurt neatly resolved, and every thought perfectly controlled. Peace is found right here in the middle of your ordinary, messy, beautifully human life. We spend so much time waiting for a grand transformation, believing that our real life will only begin once we become fully healed, perfectly balanced, and completely unbothered by discomfort. But while we wait for that imagined moment of internal perfection, the actual days of our lives pass us by. We miss the quiet, unscripted beauty of the ordinary because we are so focused on searching for a breakthrough. You don't need to become a completely refined version of yourself before you deserve to feel calm, happy, or content. You don't have to wait until you have cleared every trace of anxiety, doubt, or weary sadness out of your body before you permit yourself to enjoy your life. You are allowed to be a work in progress and simultaneously enjoy your afternoon. You are allowed to sit in a room with unresolved questions in your heart while still appreciating a warm sunbeam resting on your desk. Think about how much peace is already sitting right in front of you, waiting for you to stop trying so hard. It is in the sound of water falling into a warm bath. It is in the aroma of fresh coffee drifting through a quiet kitchen in the morning. It is in the soft weight of a blanket pulled over your shoulders on a chilly evening, or the simple comfort of sitting across from someone you love without needing to explain your state of mind. These moments do not ask you to prove your growth. They do not inspect your psychological progress before offering you comfort. They simply offer themselves to you, freely and without condition. When you trust the ordinary moments, you stop demanding that your life produce non-stop spiritual or emotional revelations. You give up the heavy, exhausting effort of trying to make every day a masterclass in personal transformation. You let a quiet walk just be a quiet walk. You let a quiet meal just be a quiet meal. You realize that the holy grail of healing isn't becoming an extraordinary, unshakable force. It is learning to feel safe in the simple, quiet rhythm of being alive. Stop trying so hard to heal and simply allow yourself to live. Let the tension leave your chest. Let your hands open and drop the heavy tools of constant self-analysis. You have done enough work. You have carried enough weight. You have spent enough hours auditing your heart. Trust that the life you are building is already unfolding, one quiet, unforced breath at a time. You do not need to force the flower to bloom. You only need to stop tearing open its petals. Trust the slow, imperceptible wisdom of your own journey, and allow yourself to rest right here in the gentle warmth of this simple, unburdened moment. If you have stayed with me all the way to the end of this journey, I want you to take a long, slow breath right now. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears. Unclench your jaw. Let the tightness in your belly soften, and allow your hands to rest comfortably in your lap. For the last 10 sections, we have walked through the heavy, tiring landscape of trying to fix ourselves. We talked about the exhaustion of treating our inner lives like an endless repair site, the subtle trap of turned-around self-improvement, the weight of constant self-surveillance, and the scary yet liberating act of laying down our heavy tools. We explored how resistance grows when we fight it, how permitting an emotion creates room for relief, and how deep, quiet integration happens without our conscious force. We looked at the sweetness of reclaiming unproductive living, the grace of taking small, unburdened steps, and the profound peace waiting for us in ordinary, unscripted moments. Now, as the quiet settles around us, I want to ask you a gentle question. How does your heart feel right in this very second? Not how you think it should feel, not how you planned for it to feel after listening to a long reflection on healing, but how it actually feels Is there still a little fatigue lingering in your chest? Is there a quiet sense of relief? Or perhaps a small, hesitant whisper of hope? Whatever is present inside you right now, let it be there. You don't need to wrap this experience up in a neat ribbon. You don't need to summarize this moment into a profound lesson to take away. You can just sit here, right where you are, completely whole and completely allowed to be human. For so long, you have been running a race that has no finish line. You have been treating your life as a grand puzzle that needs to be solved before you are permitted to enjoy the quiet warmth of an afternoon. You have convinced yourself that peace is something you have to earn through relentless effort, non-stop self-analysis, and perfect emotional discipline. But the ultimate truth of your journey is so much gentler than that. Peace was never waiting at the end of a long, exhausting self-improvement list. It was never hidden behind the next breakthrough, the next journal prompt, or the next perfect morning routine. Peace has been right here all along, waiting beneath the noise of your constant effort. It has been waiting for the moment you finally get tired enough to stop fighting yourself. When you stop trying so hard to heal, you are not giving up on your life. You are finally stepping into it. You are choosing to trust that the deeper intelligence within you knows exactly how to knit your spirit back together. Just as the earth knows how to quiet itself in the dead of winter without worrying about whether spring will return, your heart knows how to integrate your experiences when you simply step out of the way. You do not need to pull open the petals of your own life to force them to bloom. You only need to give yourself permission to exist, to breathe, and to live one unforced moment at a time. Imagine walking out into the rest of your day without carrying the invisible weight of self-correction. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and simply eating your breakfast, drinking your tea, and looking out the window without auditing your mood. Imagine feeling a sudden wave of quiet sadness or momentary anxiety, and instead of reaching for a tool to fix it, simply putting your hand over your heart and whispering, "It is okay for me to feel this right now." That simple shift, from fighting your experience to softly holding it, is where true freedom lives. It is the quiet birth of self-compassion. I invite you to take a deep, grounding breath, drop every lingering piece of tension in your body, and leave the affirmation, "I am allowed to stop fighting myself and just live," in the comments below. Let those words be a gentle boundary you set for your mind today. Let them be a soft reminder to your soul that you are already worthy of peace, exactly as you are in this very moment.